Imprinted in the UFO archive is the strange spate of over 100 sightings of extraterrestrial craft and beings in Italy during the 1950s. One was a very up-close and personal encounter, while another was viewed by a football crowd of 10,000. Craft repairs. On April 24, 1950, a 42-year-old factory worker named Bruno Ficini was working the late shift when he stepped outside to get some fresh air during his break. His hometown of Varese in Italy had just experienced a severe thunderstorm, and Bruno decided to check if the electrical system had snapped a circuit breaker, as a bright glowing light could be seen nearby. He was astonished to observe a circular-shaped glowing object that had a ladder descended from its underside. Inside the top of the UFO, he saw a greenish glow through which a light-skinned being was visible. The strange creature seemed to be welding something onto the craft, which Bruno initially assumed was some kind of experimental craft from a nearby airbase. However, this thought quickly vanished when he saw several other small alien beings emerging from the craft. Moments later, the ladder started to be drawn up into the mysterious vessel, and the strange creatures began to re-enter it via an invisible door of some kind. Realizing what he was witnessing, Bruno ran to escape the frightening encounter, only to hear a sound, something like that of a giant beehive. One of the creatures still remaining pointed a kind of weapon at him, and a beam of force struck him to the ground. Now in pain, Bruno watched the final activities of the strange aliens as they finished preparing the craft for takeoff. The buzzing sound grew louder as the UFO rose up into the skies and then vanished from view. The following day, Bruno made a full report of his experience to the police, who found there were signs still visible of the events of the night before. Burnt patches on the ground and indentation marks from an extremely heavy object. They also discovered some odd green fragments of a metal-like substance, which, when Bruno recounted the welding operation, they suggested may be offcuts of the process. After analysis of the debris, results concluded that the fragments may be an anti-friction material, as they contained several kinds of metal as well as a lubricant. In September 1953, UFO investigators conducted their own tests on the green substance by a scientific institute specialising in metallurgy. It assessed that the fragments were 74% copper and 19% tin and contained other trace elements. Under heavy magnification, the strange material was a yellow-white colour, but did not contain any metals which are not found on Earth. Still, an extraterrestrial connection was not discounted, and Bruno Ficini's account was taken very seriously by all who knew him. He was considered a respectable and well-liked man, as well as reliable and trustworthy, and he received no personal gain from his report of the strange object and beings he observed that night. 10,000 witnesses. On October 27, 1954, a football match was halted when unidentified flying objects appeared above a stadium in Florence, Italy. 10,000 fans were watching as the Fiorentina club played against its local rival, Pistoiese, in the large concrete Stadio Artemi Franchi, but fell eerily silent just after half-time. Then a roar went up from the crowd when the spectators were no longer watching the game, but staring and pointing upwards. Then footballer Ardico Magnini later related that something resembling an egg was moving slowly across the sky, dispersing downwards something like silver glitter. Play was suspended while fans below observed the incredible sight. One, named Gigi Boni, later described multiple objects which reminded him of Cuban cigars moving very fast and then just stopping. The whole incident lasted about 2 minutes, and he had no doubt the objects were extraterrestrial. The incident at the stadium was never dismissed as mass hysteria, as there were numerous UFO sightings in many towns across Tuscany on that day, as well as over the days that followed. Some eyewitness accounts also reported that a ray of white light could be seen in the sky coming from Prato, north of Florence. Roberto Pinotti, the president of Italy's National UFO Centre, believes it can be concluded that the object above the stadium was an intelligent, technological phenomenon, and one that cannot be linked with anything we know about on Earth. The researcher and author is also intrigued by the material, like silver glitter, that fell from the sky, the unusual sticky substance falling from above, known colloquially as angel hair. Pinotti witnessed the phenomenon himself as a 10-year-old when he remembers seeing in broad daylight the roofs of houses in Florence covered in this white substance for a full hour. Then, like snow, it just evaporated, disintegrating after a short period of time and so evading investigation. He says that no one knows how this strange substance is connected with UFOs, variously reported by witnesses as similar to cotton wool or cobwebs. Although the substance is hard to collect, a former journalist at the Florentine newspaper La Nazione, the late Giorgio Bettini, succeeded. In 2003, he told an Italian television program, Voyager, how on a day of many sightings, when he received hundreds of related phone calls, he ventured out to investigate and found a wood outside of Florence that was covered in the white fluff. He collected several samples by rolling them up on a matchstick, then handed them over to the Institute of Chemical Analysis at the University of Florence. With respected scientist Professor Giovanni Caneri in charge, the lab subjected the substance to spectrographic analysis, thereby concluding that it contained the elements boron, silicon, calcium and magnesium, and also that it was not radioactive. Unfortunately, this result gave no conclusive answers, while the material was destroyed in the process. Pinotti disputes the spiderweb theory because of the chemical test results. Spider silk is known to be a protein, an organic compound comprising nitrogen, calcium, hydrogen and oxygen, and with none of the elements reportedly found in the angel hair samples. Science writer Philip Ball agrees that while magnesium and calcium are common elements in living bodies, the boron and silicon found in the white fluff rule out the spider theory. The mystery remains, while those witnesses also remain convinced that what they saw was not an earthly phenomenon. Cernina UFO. On November 1st, 1954, multiple people in different locations around the Tuscan village of Cernina, outside of Florence, reported seeing a large disc-shaped craft which was emitting bright lights and hovering silently at a low altitude above the ground. Rosa Lotti later became the incident's chief witness, describing a large vertical spindle like two cones joined at their bases in Cernina Woods. She said that from behind the strange craft emerged two small humanoid beings about 3 feet tall who approached her in a friendly manner, the older one laughing. While she perceived their language as similar to Chinese, she claimed that they communicated with her telepathically, reportedly conveying messages about peace and warning against humanity's destructive tendencies. Lottie further related that they snatched her bunch of carnations and one of her stockings, whereupon she ran away. A deep hole in the ground was later discovered at the site. Despite the bizarre nature of the encounter, this case is considered relatively credible due to many other Cernina locals seeing the same object around the same time, some even stating that the object appeared about to land. 3 men who were leaving the Pietraviva Recreational Club also noticed a strange blue-coloured object overhead, which stopped suddenly, hovered, then began to descend before coming to another stop next to a nearby hill. The same object also probably returned to the location at just before midnight on the same day, with two farmers and a man on a stopped motorcycle viewing the airborne oval-shaped object, after which it travelled behind some nearby mountains.